From the moment Rachel stepped onto the dusty training field, the heat of the sun pressed down on her face, and the air was thick with the smell of earth and sweat. She tightened the strap on her prosthetic leg, one she had grown accustomed to over the long months of rehab, but today it felt different somehow, heavier maybe because of the weight of the expectations around her. Or maybe because she knew this race would not be just a test of speed or endurance, but a test of will and spirit. She looked out at the line of Marines standing tall and proud, their bulky combat gear glinting under the sun. Their faces were a mix of determination and curiosity and perhaps some concealed doubt. How could a woman with a prosthetic leg possibly keep up with the men who had trained harder and longer, who carried heavier loads and who moved with the seamless precision of soldiers trained for battle? Rachel knew the answer to that question, but she did not say it aloud. Instead, she felt the familiar knot of adrenaline begin to build in her stomach. She had not come this far to be underestimated. She had not come this far to be defined by what she had lost. She had come to prove that strength was not just about muscles or flesh, but about heart and relentless courage. The crowd that had gathered was a mix of family friends, fellow soldiers, and curious onlookers, all whispering and stealing glances at Rachel. Some had seen her training sessions where she pushed herself to the brink. Others knew her story of injury and recovery, yet none could fully grasp the fire burning inside her. She took a deep breath and allowed her mind to drift back to the day her life had changed forever, the explosion that shattered her leg and threatened to end not just her career but her dreams and sense of self. It was a moment she had relived countless times, but each memory only fueled her resolve. Her prosthetic leg was more than a tool. It was a symbol of survival and adaptation, a marvel of engineering, yes, but also a reminder that life could be rebuilt in ways she had never imagined. She adjusted the harness again and took a few tentative steps, feeling the connection between metal and muscle, between machine and soul. It was imperfect, but it was hers, and it was enough to face the challenge ahead. Rachel glanced sideways at the Marines. They were already stretching and warming up, their heavy boots pounding against the ground. Her heart pounded too, not with fear, but with fierce determination. She could almost hear their silent thoughts, questioning whether she truly belonged in this race, whether she was an equal competitor or a mere curiosity. But Rachel had long learned to channel such doubts into fuel she had trained for months, with an intensity that surprised even her toughest instructors, refusing to let anything hold her back. The whistle was still some moments away, and the waiting was almost unbearable. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows on the cracked earth. Rachel closed her eyes briefly and pictured the course ahead. The mud pits, the steep inclines, the rope climbs, the endless stretches where speed mattered most. She had studied every inch of it and practiced each obstacle until her body remembered the motions like a second language. Her prosthetic leg would never feel quite the same as her real one. But Rachel had adapted her running style, using every ounce of balance and core strength she had developed. She had learned to anticipate the terrain, with her eyes and body moving as one, with the machine strapped to her limb. There was no room for hesitation, no space for doubt. Suddenly a hush fell over the crowd as the commanding officer stepped forward, his voice booming. Across the field, he reminded everyone of the stakes of the race, the tradition, and the honor. It was not just a physical contest, but a mental battle, a testament to endurance, resilience, and spirit. Rachel listened carefully, absorbing every word, feeling the weight of history and expectations settle on her shoulders. She glanced down at her prosthetic leg once more and smiled quietly to herself. It was not just a race against the Marines today, but a race against every whisper of disbelief, every sideways glance, every doubt ever cast her way. It was a race against time and fear and limits imposed by others, or even by herself. Then the whistle blew, piercing the air like a shot, and Rachel felt the surge of adrenaline like a wave crashing through her veins. She took her first stride forward, the metal foot striking the ground with a purposeful thud. The Marines shot ahead with their powerful strides, but Rachel was not far behind. Each step was a victory, each breath a defiance. She was not just running against them, she was running toward something far greater than victory or defeat. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Rachel barely heard them, her focus laser-sharp, her mind and body working in perfect harmony as she navigated the first stretch of rough terrain. Her prosthetic leg flexing and adapting with each movement, a testament to human ingenuity and personal grit. She felt the eyes of the Marines on her back and wondered if they saw her strength or just the machine that carried her as she approached the first obstacle, a towering wall that had defeated many. Rachel felt a flicker of doubt, but it was quickly drowned by a surge of determination. She reached out her arms to grab the rope and began to pull herself up using every muscle in her arms and core. The prosthetic leg dangled for a moment before she swung it around and planted it firmly on the other side. The climb was slow but steady, and Rachel felt a thrill of triumph even as the Marines raced past her landing. On the ground, she pushed forward through the mud pits, the sticky, heavy earth clinging to her boots, and prosthetic making each step more difficult than the last. But Rachel welcomed the challenge. It was a reminder that she was fighting, not just the course, but every barrier that life had thrown her way. She could feel sweat dripping down her brow, her breath coming in steady, controlled bursts. Her muscles burned, but her spirit soared. With every step, she was rewriting the story that many had written for her before she had even started. The Marines were ahead, but Rachel was gaining ground slowly but surely. She felt the rhythm of the race in her veins, the pounding of her heart matching the sound of her footsteps. It was not just a contest of speed, but a battle of wills, and Rachel was determined to win. As she rounded the bend and saw the next obstacle looming, a steep climb that would test even the strongest, she felt a flicker of excitement mixed with fear. This was where the real test began, and Rachel was ready to face it head-on. She took a deep breath and planted her foot firmly on the ground, ready to push beyond pain, beyond doubt, beyond what anyone thought possible. Because this was her moment, the moment she would prove not just to the Marines or the crowd, but to herself that she was more than her injury, more than a prosthetic leg. She was a warrior, a fighter, and nothing would stop her now. The race was well underway, and Rachel found herself locked in a rhythm, her prosthetic leg moving in sync with her body as she pushed through the pounding heat and rough terrain. The Marines ahead moved with their usual precision and strength, their heavy gear weighing them down, but they were still faster and stronger. Yet Rachel had something they didn't. She had the fire of someone who had stared down loss and refused to back away. She had trained not just her body, but her mind every grueling day, sculpting her determination into something unbreakable. Course twisted ahead with obstacles that would test the limits of any competitor. The mud pits stretched like traps waiting to claim the weak, and the ropes swung high, challenging grip and nerve. Rachel approached the first big obstacle, a towering wall covered in ropes and loose boards that required more than just strength. It required balance and timing. She hesitated for just a moment, feeling the weight of her prosthetic leg strapped securely but still unfamiliar with the uneven surfaces. Her competitors were already scaling the wall with ease, their bodies fluid and practiced. Rachel gritted her teeth and began to climb. The rope bit into her palms as she pulled herself upward, her arms burning with effort. Below her, the mud sucked at, boots and legs making the slightest misstep potentially disastrous. Her prosthetic leg dangled for a moment, uncertain, before she swung it around, landing it firmly on a wooden plank. The moment it did, she felt a jolt of confidence surge through. Her every inch she climbed felt like a battle, a test of will against the impossible. She could hear the pounding footsteps of the Marines behind and ahead, the shouts of encouragement and the gasps of disbelief from the crowd. She was not just a competitor. She was a story unfolding in real time, a living challenge to everything the world had told her she couldn't do at the top of the wall. She hesitated again, feeling a sharp pain in her residual limb, a reminder that her body was still healing, still adapting. But she forced herself to push past it. She threw her weight over the edge and landed awkwardly but firmly on the other side. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Rachel felt a rush of exhilaration, but she knew the hardest part was yet to come. The next stretch was a maze of mud pits and uneven ground designed to sap energy and test endurance. The sticky earth clung to boots, slowing every step. Rachel felt the mud seep around her prosthetic, the suction threatening to pull her down, but she refused to let it stop her. She adjusted her stride, carefully finding a balance between speed and stability. Her breath came in sharp bursts as she pushed forward, her muscles screaming, but her spirit screaming louder behind her. The sounds of the Marines closing in reminded her that she was not just running against time, but against every doubt and fear that had tried to hold her back. The weight of the combat gear that they carried slowed them in some ways, but their raw strength and experience made them formidable opponents. Rachel could see the determination etched on their faces, the respect mingled with disbelief as they realized she was not just keeping pace, but challenging them. She passed one Marine who glanced at her with surprise and a flicker of something else admiration. Rachel met his eyes and nodded slightly silently, acknowledging the battle they were both fighting in different ways. The course twisted again, leading to a steep incline, a hill so sharp it seemed to pierce the sky. The climb was notorious for breaking competitors, and Rachel knew this was where many faltered. Her prosthetic leg protested with every step, the fit in the socket causing a sharp ache that radiated through her body. But Rachel blocked out the pain, focusing instead on the summit above her. The crowd below cheered wildly, and she imagined their voices carrying her upward. She tightened the straps of her harness and launched herself forward, driving her hands into the dirt, pulling herself up inch by inch. Halfway up, she stumbled, slipping on loose soil, her balance faltering for a terrifying second. The Marines behind caught up faster than she expected, and Rachel felt the pressure of their presence closing in. But something inside her snapped into fierce determination. She gritted her teeth and pushed harder, finding a rhythm in the struggle, a rhythm that defied every expectation. With a final surge, she reached, the top collapsing briefly on the ground, gasping for breath. Her prosthetic leg throbbed fiercely, but Rachel smiled despite the pain. She was still in the race, still fighting, still proving that nothing could keep her down. The Marines regrouped. Around her, their expressions mixed with respect and renewed determination. Rachel knew the hardest part was still ahead, but for now she allowed herself a brief moment of triumph. The final stretch was a test of speed and agility, a narrow path littered with rocks, roots, and sharp turns that would challenge even the most seasoned runner. Rachel took off again, her movements more confident now, despite the ache in her leg. The crowd was a roaring wave behind her, the sound pushing her forward faster than she thought possible. She dodged a low-hanging branch and felt her prosthetic scrape against bark, sending a jolt of pain through her leg. But Rachel refused to slow. She was close now, the finish line just beyond the final curve. Her competitors were pushing hard trying to catch her, but Rachel's eyes were fixed on the prize ahead. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the air. Her prosthetic leg caught on a hidden root, and Rachel stumbled, losing her balance for a heart-stopping moment. The Marines surged forward, passing her as she fought to regain her footing. The crowd gasped, and time seemed to slow. Rachel's mind raced between panic and determination. She could give up and let them win, or she could fight back and prove that This was her moment. With a fierce growl, Rachel pushed off the ground, swinging her leg forward and launching herself into a desperate sprint. Her body screamed with pain, her breath ragged but her will unyielding. The finish line drew closer, and the crowd rose to their feet. Their cheers, a thunderous wave of energy. Rachel crossed the line just seconds behind the lead Marine, collapsing into the dirt, exhausted but victorious. She had not won the race, but she had won something far greater respect, from those who doubted her and a proof of her own unbreakable spirit. As she lay there catching her breath, she knew this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge every expectation and redefine what it meant to be strong. The Marines gathered around her, their faces a mix of exhaustion and newfound respect. One reached out to help her up, and Rachel accepted the hand with a smile, knowing that today she had not just outrun them, she had outshone every limitation ever placed on her. The story was far from over, but this chapter had been written in grit, sweat, and unrelenting courage. The aftermath of the race left Rachel breathless but not broken. Her body ached in places she did not even know existed, her prosthetic leg, throbbing with an unfamiliar pain. Yet beneath it all, a deeper fire burned, a flame that refused to be extinguished. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the field, Rachel sat quietly on the edge of the course, watching the Marines pack up their gear and exchange stories of the race. Some of them glanced her way with looks that had shifted from doubt to respect, and others simply nodded silently, acknowledging her strength without words. She allowed herself a rare moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her here, a path littered with obstacles far greater than any course could present. The explosion that had taken her leg had seemed like the end of everything, a cruel twist of fate that ripped away more than just flesh and bone. It had torn away dreams, plans, and a future she had once imagined with clear skies and endless possibilities. Yet in the darkest moments, she had found a spark, a stubborn refusal to surrender that had carried her through endless hours of pain therapy and doubt. Rachel thought back to the days spent in sterile hospital rooms when her world had been reduced to the monotony of machines and whispered prayers. She remembered the first time she looked at her prosthetic leg, the cold, unyielding machine that seemed so foreign and yet strangely hopeful. She had cried that day, not out of weakness, but out of a profound loss of who she once was. But somewhere deep inside, a new identity began to take shape, one forged from resilience, courage, and a fierce determination to reclaim her life on her own terms. The race had not been just a physical challenge, it was a declaration, a bold statement to the world and to herself that she was still here, still fighting, and still capable of greatness. She had trained relentlessly, pushing her body to its limits, and beyond, often in solitude, battling doubts and setbacks that no one else could see. It was a lonely journey filled with moments of despair and flashes of hope, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure and transcend. As the evening shadows lengthened, Rachel felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Captain Morgan, one of the senior Marines who had watched her closely during the race. His eyes were tired but filled with a grudging respect. He spoke softly, acknowledging her grit and determination, and admitting that he had underestimated her. She nodded, accepting his words, but knowing that the real victory was internal, a battle, won in the quiet corners of her mind. Later that night, Rachel lay in her small apartment, the hum of the city outside, a constant reminder of the world that moved on, regardless of individual struggles. She stared at the ceiling, tracing patterns with her eyes lost in thought. The pain in her leg had settled into a dull ache, but her heart raced with the memory of the race and the faces of those who had doubted her. She knew this was just the beginning, that the road ahead was long and filled with challenges she had not yet faced. Her mind drifted back to her training sessions early in the morning when the world was still asleep, and she pushed herself through exercises designed to build strength and balance. She recalled the moments when her prosthetic leg felt like a betrayal slipping or causing pain, but also the moments when it felt like an extension of herself moving fluidly and powerfully. She remembered her trainer's voice encouraging her to trust the process, to believe in her own strength, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. The journey had changed her in ways she never anticipated, reshaping her understanding of strength and vulnerability. She realized that true strength was not just about physical power, but about embracing weakness and fear, and still choosing to move forward. It was about redefining limits and refusing to be confined by the labels others placed on her. In the days that followed, Rachel found herself at the center of conversations. She had never expected the story of the woman who outran Marines despite a prosthetic leg spread quietly at first, through whispers, and then through louder voices. Her determination became a symbol, a beacon for others facing their own battles. Whether soldiers, civilians, or athletes, many saw in her a reflection of their own struggles and hopes. Rachel was invited to speak at events and training centers to share her experience, not as a tale of inspiration, but as a raw and honest account of what it meant to face adversity head-on. She spoke of the pain, the setbacks, the loneliness, and the fierce joy of small victories. Her words resonated deeply with those who heard them, and she found a new purpose beyond competition, yet even as recognition grew, Rachel remained grounded, focused on the next steps in her journey. She knew that the prosthetic leg was only one piece of the puzzle, that healing and growth were ongoing processes that required patience and relentless effort. The physical race had been won, but the internal race to rebuild confidence, trust, and identity was far from over. One afternoon, while training in a quiet gym, Rachel met another veteran with injuries far more severe, whose spirit was dimmed by despair. The encounter reminded her of her own early struggles and strengthened her resolve to be more than just a competitor, but a mentor and advocate. She began volunteering her time, helping others navigate the complex journey of recovery and adaptation, offering not just physical guidance, but emotional support. The bond that formed between Rachel and those she helped was profound, a mutual exchange of strength and hope that transcended words. It was a reminder that human connection was a powerful force that could heal and empower even in the darkest times. Together they created a community where limitations were challenged and dreams nurtured, a place where the impossible was redefined every day. Rachel's life became a tapestry woven from threads of pain, triumph, connection, and purpose. The prosthetic leg that had once felt like a symbol of loss now stood as a testament to resilience and transformation. Her story was no longer just about outrunning Marines, but about running toward a future where courage and determination could rewrite any narrative. As the months passed, Rachel continued to push her limits, setting new goals and facing fresh challenges. Each achievement was a victory, not just over physical barriers, but over fear, doubt, and the weight of expectation. She embraced the uncertainty of the path ahead, knowing that every step forward was a testament to the unyielding power of the human spirit. The race was just one chapter in a story that was still unfolding, a story of a woman who refused to be defined by loss or limitation, who found strength in struggle and purpose in pain. Rachel's journey was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even when the odds seemed insurmountable, the heart could outrun fear, and the spirit could triumph over every obstacle. And so Rachel ran on into the unknown, driven by a fierce desire to live fully, to inspire others, and to prove that the true measure of strength was not in the legs we stand on, but in the courage that carries us forward, no matter what stands in our way. The morning air was crisp and sharp as Rachel laced up her running shoes, feeling the familiar pressure around her residual limb. Her prosthetic leg gleamed in the early light, a symbol of resilience and progress. But today, the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on her chest. She stood at the edge of the training ground watching the course unfold before her, the same course that had tested her body and spirit weeks ago now awaited her once more, only this time the stakes felt higher. The Marines had invited her back for a full combat simulation, a grueling test not just of speed and endurance, but of tactical skill and mental fortitude. Rachel knew this was a different challenge, a challenge that would push her in ways she had not yet experienced. The combat gear would be heavier, the obstacles more complex, and the mental strain immense. But beneath the surface of nerves, there was a quiet confidence born from months of training setbacks and small victories. She was ready to prove that she was more than just the woman with a prosthetic leg. She was a soldier, a competitor, and a force to be reckoned with. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the field, the Marines gathered around, briefing their teams. The air buzzed with anticipation and tension. Rachel listened intently, absorbing every detail, every nuance of the mission ahead. The simulation would involve navigating a hostile environment, completing objectives under fire, and adapting to rapidly changing conditions. It was designed to mimic the chaos and unpredictability of real combat. The weight of the combat gear was immediately apparent. As Rachel strapped on her helmet, vest, and pack, each piece a reminder of the burden carried by every soldier. Her prosthetic leg adjusted to the added pressure and movement, requiring constant recalibration and focus. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and steeled her mind for the ordeal ahead. The whistle blew and the simulation began, chaos erupting around her, with shouts, gunfire, and explosions echoing in the distance. Rachel surged forward, her heart pounding, her muscles burning. Her prosthetic leg moved in sync with her body, adapting to the rough terrain and sudden changes in pace. She could feel the eyes of her fellow Marines on her back, some filled with respect, others with disbelief, but Rachel blocked it out. Focusing on the task ahead, the first obstacle was a series of low walls and trenches designed to test agility and speed. Rachel dove into the first trench, feeling the cold mud seep through her gloves and sleeves. The weight of her gear made every movement a struggle, but she pushed through, drawing on every ounce of strength and training. She crawled under wire and scrambled over walls, each action precise and deliberate, despite the fatigue threatening to overwhelm her. As she emerged from the obstacles, the terrain shifted into dense woods where visibility was limited and danger could lurk around any corner. Rachel's senses heightened, every sound, every shadow was analyzed, her mind racing to stay ahead of the threats. The simulation called for quick decisions and adaptability, and Rachel felt the familiar rush of adrenaline sharpening her focus. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed nearby, and Rachel dropped to the ground, heart hammering. She scanned the area, searching for the source, and quickly assessed the safest route forward. The Marines around her moved with practiced efficiency, but Rachel knew her success depended on more than just physical skill. It was about strategy, timing, and trust in herself and her equipment. She pushed forward, moving carefully, but swiftly, her prosthetic leg handling the uneven ground with a surprising fluidity that even she sometimes marveled at. The weight of her pack threatened to pull her down, but Rachel refused to let it slow her. She adjusted her pace, matching the rhythm of the squad, working seamlessly as part of the team. Midway through the course, a simulated casualty alarm blared, and Rachel was tasked with providing aid to a wounded Marine. Her training in combat medicine kicked in despite the exhaustion. She moved with calm precision, stabilizing the injured soldier and coordinating with others to arrange evacuation. The moment was a stark reminder of the real stakes behind the simulation. The lives depending on every decision, every action as the mission progressed. Rachel faced moments that tested her resolve more than her body. A sudden downpour turned the ground to slippery mud, making each step a gamble. Her prosthetic leg threatened to lose traction, but Rachel adapted using her core. Strength and balance to maintain control. The Marines glanced her way, their expressions a mix of surprise and newfound respect. The final objective was a sprint to secure a strategic point under fire. Rachel's heart raced as she pushed her limits. The weight of her gear and the pain in her leg almost unbearable, but her determination burned brighter than ever. She dashed through the open field, feeling the sting of simulated bullets and the roar of the crowd encouraging her forward, crossing the finish line. Rachel collapsed into the dirt, exhausted but triumphant. The Marines gathered around her, their faces reflecting admiration and disbelief. They had witnessed not just a race, but a battle won by sheer willpower and unyielding courage. Captain Morgan approached once more, his voice sincere, acknowledging her as one of their own. She smiled, knowing that this victory was deeper than physical achievement. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Later that evening, as Rachel removed her gear and tended to the soreness in her body, she reflected on the journey ahead. The prosthetic leg was no longer a limitation, but a part of her identity, a tool that had helped her reclaim her place in a world that had once seemed closed off. She knew the road was still long and filled with challenges, but she was ready to face whatever came next with courage and resilience. The experience had changed her not just physically, but mentally, strengthening her resolve to push boundaries, break barriers, and inspire others through every obstacle, every hardship. Rachel's story continued to unfold, a powerful reminder that strength was not measured by what you had lost, but by what you refused to give up. The days following the combat, simulation blurred into a whirlwind of activity. Rachel's body ached deeply, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Each morning she woke before dawn, lacing up her running shoes and preparing for grueling training sessions that pushed her beyond every limit she had thought possible. The prosthetic leg that once seemed like a barrier had become an extension of her will, a tool through which she channeled her determination and grit. The military base was alive with the sounds of drills and commands, the sharp bark of voices and the rhythmic pounding of boots against earth. Rachel moved through the routines with a fierce focus, her mind tuned to every detail, every movement. She practiced running, climbing, crawling, and maneuvering through obstacle courses, each one more challenging than the last. The Marines around her, who had once doubted her, now watched with quiet respect, many of them offering words of encouragement or simply nodding in acknowledgement of her relentless spirit. Despite the physical exhaustion, Rachel refused to slow down. She knew that every drop of sweat, every ache in her muscles was a step closer to proving not just to others, but to herself, that she was capable of greatness. The prosthetic leg that had once symbolized loss had transformed into a badge of honor, a mark of survival and strength. One afternoon, during a particularly intense training session, Rachel found herself paired with Sergeant Davis, a seasoned Marine known for his toughness and uncompromising standards. At first, the tension between them was palpable. Sergeant Davis was skeptical of her abilities, questioning how someone with a prosthetic leg could endure the rigors of combat training. But as the hours passed and Rachel pushed through every drill with unwavering determination, his attitude began to shift. They worked together on a grueling series of exercises that tested endurance and precision, from long-distance runs to complex tactical drills. Rachel's prosthetic leg adapted with every movement. But the mental battle was just as fierce as the physical. The frustration of moments when the leg malfunctioned or when pain flared was a constant challenge. Yet with Sergeant Davis pushing her and her own resolve pushing back, she found a new level of strength emerging during a late evening run. When the sky was painted with the soft hues of twilight, Rachel and Sergeant Davis ran side by side, the silence between them filled with a mutual understanding born of shared struggle. The Marine finally broke the silence, acknowledging Rachel's courage and resilience. He admitted that she had changed his perception, not just of what was possible, but of what it meant to be a soldier. The camaraderie that developed between them was a turning point, a reminder that strength was often forged in connection and respect rather than competition and doubt. Rachel felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing she was not alone in this journey, that even in the toughest moments she could rely on others who believed in her. Outside the rigorous training, the world beyond the base was also beginning to take notice. Rachel's story had spread far beyond the military circles, capturing the attention of journalists, athletes, and advocates for disabled veterans. Invitations to speak at events and participate in campaigns poured in. Her message was clear, not just about overcoming physical challenges, but about embracing identity, resilience, and redefining strength on one's own terms. Rachel balanced the demands of public attention with the intense physical training, finding solace in the quiet moments of reflection when she could reconnect with her core purpose. The prosthetic leg that had once been a source of frustration now felt like an integral part of her story, a symbol of transformation and hope. One particularly poignant moment came when Rachel visited a rehabilitation center where young veterans were learning to adapt to life after injury. She spoke openly about her journey, the pain, the setbacks, and the moments of triumph. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom saw in her a reflection of their own fears and hopes. The connections forged in that room reaffirmed Rachel's commitment to using her experience to inspire and support others. As the months rolled on, Rachel's training intensified, preparing for an upcoming endurance challenge, a grueling multi-day event designed to push even the strongest soldiers to their limits. It was not just a test of physical stamina, but of mental resilience and tactical skill. Rachel approached it with a mix of excitement and nerves, knowing that this would be one of the hardest challenges yet. She spent hours planning every detail, from nutrition to pacing to equipment maintenance. Each aspect was crucial to success, and Rachel applied the same meticulous focus she had learned during her military training. Her prosthetic leg required special care and adjustments to endure the prolonged stress and harsh conditions that the event would demand. The night before the endurance challenge, Rachel lay awake, her mind racing through every scenario, every potential obstacle. She felt the familiar mix of fear and determination that had accompanied every major milestone in her journey. The future was uncertain, but her resolve was unwavering. She was ready to face whatever came next with courage and strength. As dawn broke, Rachel stood at the starting line, surrounded by fellow soldiers, veterans, and athletes, all preparing for the daunting race ahead. The energy was electric, charged with anticipation and a shared understanding of the challenges that lay ahead. Rachel's heart pounded not just from nerves, but from the fierce desire to push beyond every limit, to run. Not just with her legs, but with her soul. The whistle blew, and the endurance challenge began, a brutal test of endurance, speed, and strategy. Rachel set off with purpose, her prosthetic leg moving with a fluidity born of countless hours of training. The course wound through rugged mountains, dense forests, and open plains, each section demanding every ounce of physical and mental strength. The weight of the pack and the unforgiving terrain made each step a battle. But Rachel embraced the pain, the exhaustion, and the doubt as part of the process. She remembered the faces of those who had supported her, the words of encouragement, and the moments when she had almost given up but chose to keep going. Throughout the race, Rachel encountered moments that tested her in new ways. A sudden storm turned the trail to slippery mud, threatening to topple even the most experienced runners. She adjusted her stride carefully, balancing the challenges of her prosthetic leg with the treacherous footing. The support of fellow competitors and the crowd's cheers fueled her determination, pushing her forward near the final leg. A mechanical issue with her prosthetic threatened to derail her progress. Rachel's heart sank as she felt the device slip, but she quickly adapted, using her upper body strength and balance to compensate, refusing to let the setback define her. She drew on every lesson learned from months of training and adversity to keep moving forward. Step by step, crossing the finish line, Rachel collapsed into the arms of her teammates, exhausted and exhilarated. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming, a testament to the power of perseverance and unyielding spirit. She had not only completed the challenge, but had inspired those around her to reconsider what was possible. In the days that followed, Rachel reflected on the journey that had brought her here, a journey marked by pain, triumph, connection, and transformation. She knew there were still challenges ahead, battles to be fought, and limits to be pushed, but she was ready for them, ready to run toward the future with courage and hope. Rachel's story was no longer just about outrunning Marines or overcoming physical limitations. It was about the indomitable human spirit, the power of community, and the courage to redefine what strength truly meant. Every step she took was a step toward a future filled with possibility, a future where nothing could hold her back. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains of Rachel's apartment, casting gentle patterns across the floor. She sat quietly sipping her coffee. The warmth, a comforting contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind. Today was different. It was the day she would face her biggest challenge yet. The official invitation had arrived weeks ago, an elite invitational competition that brought together the most formidable athletes, warriors, and veterans from around the world. Each competitor was a testament to human endurance, skill, and willpower. But for Rachel, this was more than a race. It was a culmination of everything. She had fought for a chance to show the world that limits were meant to be broken and courage was measured by the heart. She stood and moved with practiced ease, preparing her gear, checking every strap and connection on her prosthetic leg. The device had evolved over time, becoming lighter, stronger, and more adaptive, but it was still a complex machine requiring precision care. Much like Rachel herself, a blend of strength, vulnerability, and resilience. As she stepped outside, the city buzzed with energy, the streets alive with anticipation. The venue was a sprawling outdoor arena nestled between mountains and ocean, a place that promised both breathtaking beauty and relentless challenge. Rachel arrived early, the air filled with the sound of athletes warming up their bodies and minds. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of nerves, excitement, and respect. The opening ceremony was a spectacle of color and sound, with speeches honoring the spirit of competition and the unbreakable human. Rachel listened as the words echoed around her, reminding her of the journey that had brought her here. From the darkest moments of injury and loss to the hard-fought victories that had shaped her path. It was a story of transformation and hope. When the competition began, Rachel found herself surrounded by elite athletes whose reputations preceded them. They were warriors in their own right, champions who had overcome their own battles and pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Yet Rachel felt no intimidation, only a deep connection, knowing that each person here shared a common drive, a relentless pursuit of excellence. The course was a grueling test of endurance, strength, agility, and strategy, winding through rugged cliffs, dense forests, and open beaches. Each section demanded not just physical prowess, but mental clarity and adaptability. Rachel moved through the terrain with a focused grace, her prosthetic leg responding fluidly to the challenges of the landscape. The weight of the past months of training and struggle seemed to merge into a seamless flow of movement and purpose. Early in the race, Rachel encountered steep rocky inclines where footing was precarious and balance critical. She paused briefly, feeling the strain in her leg and the burn in her lungs, but then pushed forward, refusing to let fatigue dictate her pace. Each step was deliberate, a negotiation between body and machine, a dance of trust and determination. Midway through the course, the weather shifted abruptly, dark clouds rolling in and a cold wind whipping across the cliffs. The rain came down in sheets, turning the ground slick and treacherous. Visibility dropped, and the noise of the storm filled the air. Rachel felt the familiar surge of adrenaline mixed with a primal focus. The conditions mirrored the unpredictability of life and battle, demanding resilience and quick thinking. She adjusted her strategy, slowing her pace to maintain control, using her upper body strength to steady herself against the wind and rain. The prosthetic leg proved its worth, adapting to the shifting terrain with remarkable responsiveness. But the mental challenge was just as intense. Rachel had to fight the creeping doubts, the fear of slipping or faltering, and the exhaustion that gnawed at her resolve. Throughout the course, Rachel encountered moments that tested her limits in new ways. A sudden sharp turn required a rapid change of direction, pushing her prosthetic leg to its limits. A narrow path along a steep drop demanded perfect balance and concentration. Each obstacle was a reminder that strength was not just physical, but deeply rooted in trust, perseverance, and courage.